Millions of people across the world practice yoga. Unfortunately, there are no reliable world estimates, so I'll introduce some numbers out of surveys undertaken in the United States. In a report looking at the use of complementary health approaches among adults in the U.S. from 2002 to 2012, it was found that over 20 million people in the U.S. practice yoga. In a 2016 study conducted by Yoga Journal and Yoga Alliance, they found that the number had increased to over 36 million. They found that nearly 30% of all Americans had participated in a yoga class. And they found that women make up the majority of yoga practitioners, but that the number of men who practice yoga had more than doubled, growing from 4 million to over 10 million in 4 years. The number of American adults over age 50 doing yoga tripled, sitting at around 14 million. From the 10-year study on complementary health approaches, they found that through the practice of yoga, about 85% of people reported lower stress. Over 60% of people became more motivated to exercise more regularly. Nearly 60% reported getting better sleep, and around 40% aimed to eat healthier. Nearly a quarter of yoga practitioners reported that they had cut back or stopped smoking cigarettes. Overall, 94% of Americans who practice yoga say that they do it for wellness reasons, and 80% report that it improved their overall health and made them feel better. These numbers presented here are descriptive in nature. It gives you general information about what people self-report as their reasons for practicing yoga and how yoga has helped them in their lives. This type of survey data is slightly different from the type of research we'll be talking about in the next few lectures. The science that we'll focus on relies heavily on experimentation with what are called randomized controlled trials. This means that the study included at least 2 groups to compare to one another. There's an experimental group, which in this case would be a group of people who practice yoga, and there's a control group. This is the group who doesn't practice yoga. And this group can be used as a benchmark to measure how effective the yoga intervention is at producing a certain outcome. Because yoga is a combination of physical postures, breathing, and meditation, and also because researchers look at many different types of outcomes, ranging from blood pressure to the experience of positive emotions, there are a variety of control groups that have been used. There could be a control group where study participants received usual care for their management of depression, or a control group that exercised on a treadmill, or a control group that goes to health education classes. The idea is that researchers need to test whether any positive outcomes observed are actually due to practicing yoga rather than simply doing any activity at all. This is the essence of a randomized controlled trial. It means all participants come into the study more or less on the same playing field and then are randomly assigned to either a yoga group or a control group. Keep in mind that the science of yoga is just emerging, and we can't say with any certainty at all that yoga can prevent or cure a certain disease or physical ailment. The National Institutes of Health, known as the NIH, started spending public money on yoga research only in 1998. Compared with other topics of research, the field is young. And also know that the science works by building on itself. Results from a single study are not the definitive answer, so I'll focus many of the research findings on what are called meta-analyses. A meta-analysis means that the scientists have searched all of the research findings on a given topic and summarized its average effect. So for example, if there was a meta-analysis on the effect of yoga on obesity, this means the researchers have collected all of the studies conducted that have examined the effect of yoga on obesity and averaged the effect over all of those studies. Another reason meta-analyses are preferred is because it goes beyond only published studies. This is important because studies reporting positive results are typically the studies that get published. Researchers who don't find positive effects often don't try to publish them. So if you're just focusing on published studies, you may think the effect is a little stronger than it actually is. Meta-analyses can help with that. I'll say that virtually every meta-analysis I reviewed covers a body of work based on a small body of evidence and with a lot of variability between the studies. meaning that some studies find positive effects while others find no effects at all. And this really isn't that surprising given the vast varieties of yoga that exist, as well as all the different control groups you could test it against. Nearly every research study I reviewed ended by noting that more well-designed, randomized controlled trials with more people are needed to clarify the effectiveness of yoga for different populations. Keep these things in mind as we discuss the various research findings.